Hello, and welcome back to the True Crime Lounge podcast. My name is Breezy, and here we talk murder and other forms of crime. Today, we're going to be talking about the case of Lisa Stasi. And before I get into that, I want to get a few things out of the way. I do have a merch shop that you can go get your true crime gear from. I also have a Patreon that you can join for early access to episodes scheduled to come out. I also can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now, with that being said, let's dive into the reason you clicked on today's episode. Lisa Stasi was 19 whenever she vanished, along with her baby Tiffany, from the Rodeway Inn in Overland Park, Kansas, on January 9, 1985. 14 years later, the tragic truth would come to light about what happened to her 4-month-old daughter, opening the floodgates of speculation about Lisa's disappearance. What started off as a missing person case quickly turned to a homicide investigation involving a serial killer who thought he had misled investigators for nearly 2 decades. And that's where we screw up, because what happens when we get too confident in ourselves? Screw ups start to happen, right? Let's go back to Lisa's early life. Lisa married Carl Stasi in August of 1984 in her hometown Huntsville, Alabama, and gave birth to her daughter Tiffany the following month. Carl and Lisa planned to stay in Huntsville to raise their daughter, but Carl did not have insurance, so the couple relocated to Kansas City. Their marriage was in trouble by the end of the year, and Carl had re-enlisted in the military, which relocated him to Illinois. Lisa and Tiffany moved into the Hope House, a battered women's shelter in Kansas City, hoping for a chance for a new life, and Lisa began looking for work. This is where she would have a meeting with, quote, John Osborne, unquote. Lisa met John Robinson while staying at the Hope House, and Robinson using the name John Osborne while introducing himself to Lisa. Robinson presented Lisa with the opportunity to join the Kansas City Outreach Program, an organization that was created to assist young moms with room and board while studying for their GED. She had high hopes for her future. This man promised her a job in Chicago, an apartment, and a daycare for her baby, and she was excited and told her family that she was joining the program. In early 1985, Lisa and Tiffany would check into their room 131 at the Rodeway Inn in Overland Park, and she told her family that Mr. Osborne had arranged and paid for her new accommodations. Feeling uneasy, Lisa's sister-in-law warned her to be cautious. On the evening of January 8th, Lisa asked her sister-in-law to watch Tiffany. When Lisa returned to pick Tiffany up, she told her sister-in-law that Mr. Osborne was looking for her, and that she called him at a hotel and left a message. He showed her the sister-in-law's house about 25 minutes after to pick up Lisa and Tiffany. They got in the vehicle, purposely returned to the motel, and Lisa left her yellow Toyota Corolla and nearly all her personal items at her sister-in-law's house. That was the last time she was ever seen. Following a hysterical phone call later that day, Lisa would call Carl's mom crying hysterically, saying that she had been told that her mother-in-law was attempting to take custody of Tiffany by claiming that Lisa was an unfit parent. Carl's mother reassured her that she was not taking Tiffany and that story was untrue. And Lisa also told her mother-in-law that someone wanted to sign 4 sheets of blank paper. Her mother warned her not to sign anything without receiving some guidance. Lisa then said, "Here they come," and hung up the phone. And that was the last time anyone ever spoke to her. The family would tell investigators that they received several letters from Lisa saying that she and the baby were doing fine. Kathy Stackpole from the former shelter read a letter to ABC News in 2000. And to summarize, it basically was quoted saying, "I want to thank you for all your help. I've decided to get away from the area and try to make a good life for me and Tiffany. There is no reason to worry about her." That sounds about right. Well, before we go any further, why don't we jump into a little bit into who John Osborne really was? John Edward Robertson was born December 27, 1943, in Cicero, Illinois. He was the third of 5 children with a disciplinarian mom and an alcoholic dad. He became an Eagle Scout in 1957 and traveled to London to perform before Queen Elizabeth. It became news throughout Chicago. Now, there's some missing leaves. Later that year, Robinson enrolled in a private boys' school at Archbishop's Quigley Preparatory Seminary in Chicago, a school for aspiring priests. He dropped out following following 1 year later due to disciplinary issues. In 1961, he enrolled at Morton Junior College, located in Cicero, and studied to become an X-ray technician, but dropped out 2 years later. By 1964, he had moved to Kansas City, married Nancy Jo Lynch. Nancy gave birth to their first child, John Jr., in 1965, followed by daughter Kimberly in 1967, and in 1971, twins Christopher and Christine. In 1969, using forged credentials, he got a job with Dr. Wallace Graham as an X-ray tech, and he was ultimately arrested for embezzling $33,000 from the medical practice, and he received 3 years probation. In 1970, he violated his probation moving back to Chicago. Then he took a job as an insurance salesman at R.B. Jones Company. And in 1971, he was arrested again for embezzling funds from the firm in order to return to Kansas City, where his probation was extended. Yet again, in 1975, he was arrested for mail and security frauds in connections with a bogus medical consulting company that he formed in Kansas City. John Edward Robertson was the last person to see Lisa Stasi on January 9, 1985. All the while, Robertson cultivated an outward appearance of being an upstanding and community-minded citizen. Meanwhile, becoming a Sunday school teacher, scoutmaster, and baseball coach. He was full of people for sure. He also weaseled his way onto the board of directors at a local nonprofit organization and forged a series of letters from the executive director to the mayor of Kansas City, and then from the mayor to other civic leaders, commending his generous volunteer efforts under the guise he was eventually awarded Man of the Year at a festival awards luncheon. While he was masquerading as a church-going, upstanding citizen, Robertson claimed to friends that he had joined a secret sadomasonic cult, joined a cult called the International Council of Masters, and had become a slave master, tasked with procuring victims to gather where they wanted to be tortured and raped by cult members. The disappearance would begin back in 1984 when Robinson started two more fraudulent companies and hired Paula Godfrey, who was 19, as a sales rep. Paula was interested in pursuing a business career. She told her family that Robinson made arrangements to her and a group of other women to fly to San Antonio. There they would enroll in clerical skills classes. Paula Godfrey vanished September 1st, 1984, from Overland Park, Kansas. Paula's family later returned and told the police that Robinson picked up their daughter September 1st, 1984, and they were driving to the airport for her flight, and she was never seen again. Paula's father flew out to San Antonio to search for his daughter. When she did not contact her, when she did not contact her family for several days. He also found out that she never checked into her hotel, and he frantically returned to Overland Park and found Robinson at his office and demanded to know where his daughter's was. Paula's parents then began receiving letters signed by Paula and postmarked in Kansas City, Kansas. They took the letters to the police. Police investigated Paula's disappearance, but the case went cold. A few months later, Robinson would meet Lisa Stasi, and she went missing, and the case went cold too. Catherine Clampett vanished June 15, 1987 from Overland Park, Kansas, after relocating there for a job. Now, there are some missing leads in this case. Let's start with Catherine Clampett. In 1987, Catherine Clampett, who was 27, moved to Kansas to live with her brother's family while looking for an apartment. Catherine came across an advertisement for Robinson's management consulting company, and her brother said that the wording of the ad was strange, offering extensive travel and a new wardrobe. Robinson hired Catherine, as she would often stay at hotels several nights a week due to her position. Her brother became concerned when she did not return home, and after leaving on June 15, 1987, reported her disappearance to the police. Over the course of the next several years, 4 more women would vanish. He was starting to get careless, however. By this time, Robinson had discovered a new technology, the early version of the internet. And as we know now, it can be very dangerous if we don't know what we're doing with it. He's said to have 5 computers in his home and began trolling for victims. Using several monikers, including Slave Master, he haunted online for women who liked to play submissive partner roles during sex. He also became well known in BDSM online chat rooms. Now, let's have first introduce Izabela Lewicka, who was a Polish immigrant. In 1999, he used the internet to meet Izabela Lewicka, 21, an art student and Polish immigrant living in Indiana. When she moved to Kansas City, Robinson gave Isabella an engagement ring. He brought her to the county registrar, where they paid for a marriage license, but it was never picked up. She also signed a 115-page slave contract that gave Robinson total control over her bank account and every aspect of her life. He also lured Isabella to Kansas City so she could be his, quote, submissive, unquote. Robinson would tell them that he was going to travel the world and sail on his yacht. He also had every one of the women sign 4 blank pieces of paper that he would use to send letters to their family, posing as the missing women. Now let's introduce Suzette Troughton. Later in 1991, Robinson scammed Suzette Troughton, 28, a nurse from Newport, Michigan. He had persuaded her to work as a caretaker for the elderly father. The alternative lifestyle attracted Suzette and to make a move to Kansas City for the following year. Her mom would say things weren't worded the way she had worded them. Everything was spelled right, she called them. The authorities then discovered 2 abandoned dogs at the trailer park where Suzette lived. Suzette's friends said that she would have never gone anywhere without her dogs. When Robinson was already on their radar, police feared Suzette could be dead. Now, what about the fear of the House of Cards? Well, investigators were pretty confident that Robinson was involved in her disappearance and began watching his every move, including trips to a 16-acre farm in Lynn County, Kansas. Dave Brown, the police officer who investigated Robinson, gave Carolyn Troughton a tape recorder and to tape record her conversations with him. And during one of these tape conversations, he told Carolyn that her daughter had left with someone else to travel the world and had not taken the job that he had offered her. Later in the call, Carolyn asked Robinson if she should notify someone about her daughter's disappearance, and he said, "Hun, I wouldn't let you know. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't worry about it too much. I'm sure that when they hit the next place, they'll they'll send us a call or call us something. Police continued to search for Robinson as he brought in women from all over the world in their hotel rooms. Detectives were able to access his garbage cans when they contained shredded documents revealing Robinson also had a storage locker in Missouri. Let's move on to some missing leads. The sexual battery incident had given law enforcement a reason to go deeper into the investigation. A search warrant was obtained for the search of the Lynn County property. Authorities also went in with their cadaver dogs and would hit some trash outside Robinson's trailer. There, police had several barrels. As Sergeant Roft was rolling the barrel out, it rolled over and something red came out. When it fell, a thin line came out the side. And it's just a thin line, and this is why they went boop and landed on the red line. And they knew right then and there that was blood. Once the police officers looked inside, they saw what they believed to be Suzette Trout, and second barrel revealed to be that of Isabella Lawica. Investigators then paid a visit to Robinson's Missouri storage locker, where they found 3 barrels, and they were all in a state of disgregation. Inside each of those barrels was a body of women who did not know you did not know were missing. Beverly Bonner, a prison librarian, Sheila Fay, 45, who was, and her daughter Debbie, who were 15. Debbie has cerebral palsy, requiring the use of a wheelchair. Investigators knew that they were dealing with a true master. Cadaver dogs led detectives to barrels on John Robinson's property where they found bodies inside, and cadaver dogs led detectives to the barrels on his property as well. Now it's time to start piecing it together. So when police would get search warrants for his house and office, they found several blank letters from Suzette Trout's signature in the storage unit, and they found a photocopy of a Rodeway Inn receipt when Lisa Stasi's name on it. They also found photocopies that would link correspondence he had sent to the family, like he had been using a template. Everything was falling into place. It put everything together at that point. Robinson was charged with the murder of the 5 women on his farm and in his storage locker. In July 2000, investigators connected him to the disappearance of Godfrey Clampett, along with Lisa Stasi and her infant daughter Tiffany. So we're probably wondering now, where is Lisa's baby? Well, authorities would receive another surprise when they received a lead that Lisa's baby, previously believed to be murdered, was not only alive, but she was a teenager with a Midwestern family. Paul Morrison, who prosecuted the case, said that they discovered a couple who unwittingly adopted little Tiffany Robinson's brother Donald Robertson and his wife Helen. Matching fingerprints and DNAs confirmed Helen Robinson was Lisa Stasi's missing daughter. Chicago police then went to Donald Robinson's home and spoke to him, and the Robinsons submitted their DNA samples, fingerprints, and footprints of the daughter, now known as Heather Robinson. For investigators, Tiffany being adopted out to Robinson's brother was a bombshell. No, I wonder what his family was thinking, you want us to adopt this baby? Why? I wonder if that was a second thought that crossed their mind. I'm curious on that. But police initially identified Heather as Lisa Stasi's missing daughter and comparing fingerprints and footprints from those from the hospital the day she was born. But we do have to wonder though, what kind of individual will kill a mom, then use his victim's baby to set up adoption for his own brother? Heather grew up not knowing her tragic past, and this shock was very incomprehensible for her. Heather would also be her world would also be shattered when she learned that her mom was the murder victim of her uncle John. And at first, Morrison did not believe that Donald had no knowledge of what happened, but he and his wife had legitimate adoption paperwork, and Heather had known that she was adopted, but did not know anything about her birth parents. She will go on to tell 2020 that her Uncle John always made her feel uncomfortable and weird feeling in her pit in her stomach. And that it was like walking down a dark alley knowing someone was behind you and approaching you closer and closer, and you had that dread in your stomach. Donald and Helen Donald and Helen with Heather, who they found out their daughter is a murder victim, who was the daughter of murder victim Lisa. And according to ABC News, Donald Robson and his wife tried to have children for at least 5 years, and they began considering adoption. Police said that they believe it was a snowy day, January 1985. John picked up Lisa from his sister-in-law's house and then drove to the Rodeway Inn. Lisa made a frantic call to her mother-in-law before disappearing. Investigators believe Lisa was probably bludgeoned to death the same day her baby was handed over to Don Robertson. And Morrison said that John told his brother it would cost several $1,000s plus adoption fees to adopt a baby, and then turned over that what turned out to be a fraudulent certificate of adoption and paperwork. Investigators also believe that the adopted family had no knowledge of the criminal activity they believe was John Robertson. Don was just another victim of John Edward Robertson. Let's go to Heather's biological family now. After Heather Robertson, aka Tiffany Stasi, was confirmed as the biological daughter of Lisa Stasi through DNA, she had come to terms with those she considered her family. Her biological father, Carl Stasi, attempted to make contact with her, um, telling ABC News that I believe that if she knows I am alive, she'll want to meet me. Stasi was unmoved by Heather's adopted family, concerned about how Heather would respond to a newfound relative, stating that I want to meet my daughter. My daughter is alive, and I have a right to see her. Lisa Stasi's mother, Heather's biological grandma, Pat Sylvester, took more of a restrained approach, saying if our granddaughter is safe and happy and that these people have nothing to do with Lisa's disappearance and they've taken care of this child, we don't want to take that away from her, but we want her to know that we are her family and we love her. Heather eventually decided to maintain a relationship with Pat, stating that her grandma taught her how forgiveness and not to have hate in her heart. But she decided against having a relationship with Carl and instead chose to officially be adopted by the man who she considered to be her real father, Don Robertson. Where is John Everett Robertson now? Well, Robertson was convicted of killing 3 women over 3 periods of 15 years. He also was sentenced to death in Kansas. At his trial in 2003, Johnson would plead guilty to Missouri charges as well as 5 additional counts to avoid death and was sentenced to life in prison. He is at the El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. Alright, that's it for today's episode. I will see y'all next time. Y'all have a great day.